Mr. Kennedy, Bobby, it's a great honor to be here with you and to offer you the Dutch edition of your magnificent work. So,
thank you very much, Thierry, and I want to thank Thierry Baudet and all the people who were involved in translating this work. The book is about Anthony Fauci. He's the central character who was the architect in our country of the COVID response. And as I show in this book, he's a public health official, unelected for 50 years. But he also has deep ties to the Pentagon and to the military-industrial complex and the intelligence agencies in our country. And I explain, so many people in the United States and Europe, we saw all the Western democracies pivot at the same time and clamp down and respond to a public health epidemic, not with a public health response, but with a militarized and monetized response that so many people were puzzled about. And what I try to do with this book is answer some of those questions about how that happened and how all of the Western nations changed at once and adopted these policies that were contrary to traditional epidemic management policies and instead were involved using COVID as a pretense for clamping down totalitarian controls and then shifting money upward. In the United States, we saw a $4 trillion shift from the American middle class to a new oligarchy of billionaires. We created 500 billionaires in 500 days, a billionaire.
wow.
And there was, of course, with every, as you know, Terry, with every emergency is an opportunity for, let's say, totalitarian elements within society and influential elites to use crisis as a way of consolidating power.
Yes.
And we saw that with COVID, and, it's very important because so many bad precedences were created that you can stop free speech whenever the government declares an emergency. In the United States Constitution, there is no epidemic exception. The Constitution, it was written for hard times, not for easy times. We need freedom of speech, not to protect speech that everybody agrees to, but to protect speech that's extremely unpopular, that criticizes government policies. And when, as you know, and you've said before, and we've said in our conversations, there's never been a time in history when the people who were censoring were the good guys. They're always the bad guys, and it's always the beginning of a slide. If a government has the capacity to censor its critics, it has a license for any kind of atrocity.
But it takes so much courage to stand out against this and defend constitutional liberties. I mean, you did it in the US with your courageous book. It was ignored by mainstream media, but still it was a massive success.
Yeah, it was the biggest bestseller of the year.
Incredible. But we experienced the same thing because we were the only group of people, the only movement that really went against all the COVID measures with a large group of civil society actors and friends and so on. But you get pressed and marginalized and demonized to an incredible extent.
And gaslighted.
Of course. And how has that been for you? Because you're still standing, you're a presidential candidate now, an independent, you left the Democratic Party. How do you feel about all this? Are you stronger than ever?
Well, listen, I was raised in a family with 11 siblings, and we were all raised with the idea that our lives would be consumed in some great controversy and that it would be a great privilege for us to play some kind of effective role in that kind of struggle. So I lost many friends. I lost a lot of political relationships. I lost income and influence. But I feel like it was a privilege to be able to participate in a way that was meaningful and helping people understand what was happening to them. So I'm very content and very peaceful, and I also am very grateful that that you've written this book.
Yeah,
The COVID Conspiracy.
I brought it. It just got out in the US as well, and you were very kind to write the preface to it. It's indeed very much inspired by your work, and it's also an honor to offer you a copy of it
Thank
right
you
now.
very much. The first I've seen it. Thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you. Do you have a final message for the Dutch audience? How can they help you? How can we work together?
The key is that I think that people should keep in mind is that now that we have this precedent that during an emergency, the government has the right now to curtail and restrict our rights. That's something that's very dangerous, and particularly we're living at a time in history when we have all these technologies. Surveillance technology like facial recognition technology. We have hundreds of thousands of satellites. We have GPS on our watches, on our cell phones that are following us all day. We have phones that are listening to our conversations, and Siri, I don't know if that's what they call it.
It's also the same.
Yeah, so Siri and
Siri hears everything.
Yeah, Siri. You think Siri's working for you? She isn't. She's working for Bill Gates and and the NSA. So every time you sneeze, every time you joke, every conversation you have is listened to.
And is that the
by
main?
At least a machine, and so we have this rise of these technologies that could be taken and deployed by a totalitarian regime to have total control of a population, and so at this point in history, where they have this kind of turnkey totalitarianism prepared, to pounce on us, we need to be especially diligent about fortifying the constitutional rights that we do have to make sure that, they never get breached again.
And that's a fight you are fighting in the US, and the Dutch, and we could be fighting in the Netherlands, and in that way, both fight the same enemy in that sense, the same dangers.
Exactly. We need they have multinational organizations. Pfizer is in every country. The Five Eyes. The spy agencies are in every country, and they have to be deployed to work for us. Instead of us working for them. In order to do that, we need to be in every country, and we need to be talking to each other and networking and strengthening each other so that we can stand up to totalitarianism whenever it emerges.
Bobby, we wish you all the best in your campaign. It's been a great pleasure and honor to be here with you and to continue to work with you. Hopefully, maybe we can translate your other books as well, and maybe at some point we'll be able to receive you in the Netherlands. Hopefully as president.
No, I want you to know that I'm part Dutch. I'm mainly Irish, but my mother's name is Skekel Skakel, which is a Dutch name.
Skekel?
Skakel.
Skakel?
Yeah, and it's a Dutch name, so...
Right.
So I'm part Dutch somewhere along the line. I'm very happy to come home to Holland.
Wonderful. You're always welcome. And thank you so much for this conversation. All the best.
Yeah.